Ford's little Puma small SUV was launched in the middle of the COVID crisis, but that didn't stop it from becoming the UK's best seller. 4 years on after launch, the brand usefully updated this model to create the car we try here, with a smarter look and a redesigned, better connected interior. The major reason you might really like it though, the sharp, engaging handling, remains just as before.
Ford hasn't fundamentally changed anything about the engineering or the handling of this updated Puma. It didn't really need to. This was already the most engaging car to drive in its segment. The choice selection beneath the bonnet is a little different from what we saw back in 2019 though. The unelectrified petrol and TDCi diesel engines which featured back then are of course long gone, as is rather disappointingly the sporty 1.5 litre 4-cylinder engine that was previously fitted to the top Puma ST, which means that all combustion Pumas now use some sort of 3-cylinder 1 litre EcoBoost mild hybrid 48-volt unit, the powertrain almost everyone wants with this car. As before, for mainstream models, this comes primarily in the 125 PS form that we're trying here, with either 6-speed manual or, as in this case, 7-speed automatic transmission. It's the auto that you have to have if you want a tuned up version of that little unit, either with 155 PS or, in the case of the top ST version, with 170 PS. The other Puma drivetrain is the one fitted to the all-electric Gen E model, and that uses a 168 PS electric motor drawing from a 43 kilowatt-hour battery, offering up to 234 miles of EV range. We're going to cover that car though in a separate film. Now, before we drove the old Ford EcoSport, we would have argued that it'd be tough to create a dynamic duffer using the brand's Fiesta underpinnings. Unfortunately, though, for its bottom line, Ford proved us wrong there, but it was determined not to make the same mistake again here. And right from the off in this Puma, as with the pre-facelift version, the signs are good. Now, most small crossovers in this class are about as rewarding to drive as a weekend spent creosoting your mother-in-law's fence. But this one immediately feels eager and accurate and poised. You want to drive it, not just be seen in it. The old Puma Coupe of the turn of the century relied on performance purity for this, painstaking development of the ride, the handling and the engine by a small group of engineers who loved the project so much that they gave up their weekends to work on it. This modern interpretation of the model line isn't of course the enthusiast-orientated coupe that old Puma was, but there is still a sense here of a car that's been developed by people who really care about how it drives, something that you just don't get from other trendy B-segment crossovers. It is slightly impaired, of course it is, by the high-sidedness and the slight extra weight which afflicts all little SUVs of this kind, but the compromises here have been kept to a minimum, and in compensation there's a slug of electrified tech that has a great deal to do with the ready eagerness that we just referenced. Increasingly in this class we're seeing hybrid engines which can drive you on battery power alone for short periods. This little Ford's mild hybrid EcoBoost unit can't do that, but its added 48-volt system, which sees a battery-fed starter generator acting as a 15 PS motor and adding 50 Newton meters of torque into the driveline, makes a real significant difference to low-speed pulling power. Switch into an unelectrified model in this segment, like a 1 litre turbo Nissan Juke for example, and you'd really notice the drivability difference. The visual changes made as part of this update are subtle, and as before with this Puma, there's certainly a lot going on here. Maybe even a hint of miniature Porsche Macan if you squint a bit. It's at the front that an existing Puma owner would notice the stylistic differences made as part of the update. The unusual canoe-shaped headlights are retained high up on the bonnet, like the little turn-of-the-century Puma Coupe, but they now incorporate a smarter daytime running light signature. This sees a built-in illuminating strip flow down into 3 small lower ribs. Also different is the repositioning of the Ford oval badge from the nose to the central grille. So not much has changed on the outside, but that's because Ford says it spent most of the update budget in improving the front of cabin experience. So let's take a look. And sure enough, inside, the update changes are far more obvious. The redesigned dashboard is less cluttered than before and features slim air vents, wraparound feel too, and a revised but still rather ugly squared off two-spoke steering wheel. Through that you view a larger 12.8-inch instrument screen, which is now standard across the range, and the central infotainment screen too. That is now much larger, up from 8 to 12 inches in size, and again it's standard across the range too. There's also now a sliding central armrest and smart ambient lighting to give the cabin a classier feel. Time to take a seat in the rear. Will this Puma's relatively short size cost you in terms of back seat space? To some extent, yes, although most customers choosing a Super Mini-based small SUV will only be using this rear bench for kids or adults on occasional short journeys, so that might not matter. It is a pity though that this bench base doesn't slide as it would do in a rival Renault Captur. Finally, let's take a look in the boot. This hands-free powered tailgate is optional with the volume trim levels, but you don't really need that because the hatch is light to lift and it opens to reveal something that might really sell you this car, a very decently sized boot. 456 litres in this combustion model and a huge 574 litres in the Gen E variant. There's also an adjustable height boot floor you really can adjust with one hand, and when it's in its lower position, up to 6 carry-on suitcases will fit back here. Below the cargo base you can't stow a spare wheel, but that's because Ford's designers decided to use that space instead to create the so-called mega box recessed underfloor well. It's a clever way of using the extra space, which means that tall items like plants or golf clubs can be transported upright if you move the adjustable height boot floor out of the way. It's a 68 litre space, that's big enough for a couple of extra carry-on bags, and it can take up to 50 kilos in weight. Ford's been offering this little mild hybrid powertrain for half a decade now, and it's still an impressive piece of tech, as the official efficiency stats of this Puma in its most popular manual 125 PS form indicate up to 52.3 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and up to 121 grams per kilometre of CO2. Saddle is set up with the 7-speed automatic transmission we're trying here, and the stats aren't quite as good, up to 49.6 mpg and 129 grams per kilometre for the 125 PS and 155 PS models, and up to 47.9 mpg and 135 grams per kilometre for the top ST. Back in late 2019, Ford's decision to reuse the Puma name for this little SUV wasn't universally popular amongst enthusiasts for the original coupe model, but that doesn't matter much. After all, for the real target market here, this car's badge is more likely to suggest sportswear or trainers than a classically styled sports coupe. And that lifestyle orientation fits with the kind of little SUV that this Ford is still trying to be: active, trendy, charismatic and current. It's not perfect, of course. We are disappointed that this update hasn't brought an upgrade in cabin quality, and as before, rear seat space is tight by segment standards. But the added screen tech is welcome, boot space is brilliant, and as before, this Ford embarrasses most of its segment rivals when it comes to drive dynamics. It remains a benchmark standard for the kind of driving enjoyment a little car of this kind can serve up. As enthusiasts, of course, we still can't help wishing it was still a small coupe, but as pragmatists, we reckon Ford has got this car just about right.